Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is December 11th. I'm starting off a little bit slower than I felt like I was. I'm consistently bouncing between being too hot and too cold both at the same time right now, which unfortunately is a issue that happens a lot. And I have a ceiling fan on a remote, but the way it works, the transformer or the circuitry, something in it, really doesn't allow for the central button to be pressed, because if I do put it in the middle, then it tends to cause the ceiling fan to wobble off balance like crazy. Uh, but I guess I'll try that again and see if maybe something's changed. Let's see, we've got a crate here. There was an official live stream that gave a Sears Globe. I think I probably have 2 or 3 Sears Globe if I wanted to craft something up to an animated version of a card. Not sure that there's really any real reason why I'd want to do that. It's been hard, to say the least, to get into the idea of caring about the cards in Shadowverse. While I like the way they look and the art style, you have the fact that they're censored and seemingly increasingly being censored. You have the fact that you don't have a great way to look at them, and uh, the actual core problem certainly is I just am not playing enough Shadowverse uh, in my free time, or even paying attention to Shadowverse when I am playing it when doing live streams, to look at the cards or see the cards that much. Uh, which that certainly does open up a potential issue with the second Inner Marvel card game when that happens. Yeah, I may just not really be super enthused in playing collectible card games anymore, so even those cards may not be that interesting. Also, I suppose you're not going to get an anime lewd style of game, or an adult focused game in the Marvel card game, um, because that would just not be the target audience at all. And so at best, the Marvel card game is going to have cards that are lots of very good, potentially classic images of, well, we do have some special missions available. That's new, but they may not even be available yet. I hope I didn't just lose 100 gold opening a pack. I don't think I did. Hmm. Uh, yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Marvel card game kept going, that you would potentially be able to make a deck where there was lots and lots of different Spider-Mans in one deck that look different and have different abilities. Uh, unless they go a really crazy direction with it and you actually select a hero like Spider-Man as the class, and then all the cards represent abilities. Uh, Honestly, you wouldn't do too bad to make a collectible card game that had each card be a classic cover of a issue, or not even a classic cover of an issue. There's probably 8 to 1,200 covers of Spider-Man. So if you literally just made every card based on some cover of Spider-Man somewhere, that would be really cool and take it in a different direction. And then you could do that with all the Marvel cards. And then you could have a hero for every single Marvel character that is out there. Otherwise, you run into the risk of potentially having to play decks that are just full of enemies, because there's way, way more enemies than there are heroes. Or you just make a very small, limited card game, which that also works perfectly fine. And perhaps that will be the best part. Play 1, take 2 All-Stars private match without quitting. Okay. It gives you a Grand Prix ticket. Alright, let's see. How can we do this? This way. Practice. Nope, not practice. Multiplayer, private. Join a private match. I need a match ID. Challenge a specific player. Create a private match. Take 2. Create match. I guess I'll do this, and if anybody would want to join at this point. Like, type in this match ID, and then I guess what I'll do is I'll see if there's anybody on the forum that has a private ID while I sit here, and we'll think about this. More than likely, this is not going to work. Unless somebody jumps on the chat while I'm playing some other game and says they want to play me. Which means I have to figure out what the name of the chat service even is. Like that program seems like it might have been fairly on its way towards success, and then people just pretty much dropped the usage of it from what I could tell. Discord, yeah. Yeah, I didn't... I've just generally not seen any Discord increases in popularity. So Discord, and then we need to go from the server news on the Shadowverse Discord to where are we? There's one forum specifically, hashtag private matches. Okay. Let's go down to the bottom. And let's see if we can do this now. Let's see. Join private match. 78340. This is not a good system. Another person already joined. And then we'll just go up 36593. Take 2 deck. We'll just stick with I guess Portalcraft. Select this. And let's see what we want. I think this is more interesting. And then let's just try to be as quick about this as possible. So that we don't waste a lot of time here. I don't think you get to keep these cards. Anyways, so this probably doesn't matter too much. I don't think I paid anything to do this take 2. If I had, I feel like they definitely ran some trickery there. So I'm just looking for the best looking cards. that we could possibly get, and then that should, if I did get to keep these cards, turn into something. Alright, well, I'm ready. And so they want me to win a game here, and that's going to be the hard part certainly on this, is can I actually win? Yeah, but you can definitely see how the multiplayer here is not good. Not a good system where you have to go to Discord to find somebody willing to put a match ID, because you can't just randomly pair to a private match. Yeah. Okay, that didn't work. Sorry, hit the thing. We'll try this next one. For the accountability section, I will say that I'm still playing Virtue's Last Reward, the second nonary game, and that at a certain point, the game has just pointed out and said directly, a character said directly that they also are remembering the different timelines. It does certainly open up the thought as far as how this whole thing works, where there very easily could be a person who is who would play Virtue's Last Reward once, get an ending, and just give up at that point, because there's definitely a lot of opportunity for that to happen. And the game says it's just kind of just like, this guy's a rotation player. Seriously? You want to play a rotation match right now? Yeah. Well, in all fairness, that one wasn't listed as the thing. Right. See, and some of them list as passing, as in they will just pass completely to let other people win. So, but there are also people trying to win. But definitely not a good system here. Definitely not a good system. So I just need to create something, because I've already done this multiple times and it's totally not working, because there's just too many people on the Discord forum sniping the codes, as it were. And so I'm gonna just instead type in my own code into the forum and let some sniper join, which we see they immediately did. Alright. And now we're creating a new deck with a completely different characters. Of course, choosing Forestcraft is a pretty dumb move on my part. Like, almost certainly I have most of these cards, and Polocraft did open up a better possibility range with something like that. And I've played Forestcraft enough to actually recognize some of these cards and know whether I really want to play them or not, but a lot of these cards in other styles of decks are completely unrecognizable to me. So yeah, in Virtue's Last Reward, one of the characters literally called me out and said, "Well, I know you betrayed me in a different timeline, therefore I'm gonna betray you. I betrayed you in this timeline," which is uh just a kind of kick in the balls, as it were, because that means you really can't the play the game the way you normally would be able to play a game, which is to, if you die, rewind time, go back to a checkpoint, and do it differently, because the game also seems to be aware of that, or at least it pretends like it's there. In all honesty, the way that it was phrased is they said, by now you should have realized this, and there's two ways that could have played out. It could have been because I am at the end of potentially 9 to 18 endings branches, that because I've done, I would say I'm approaching 80% of the game already. It could be saying that because I hit a certain percentage of completion in the totality of the game, or it could just be randomized. Very often, if something is said, it seems like it is just a tacked on piece of information that could easily have been skipped if this happened to be the first branch or first timeline you went down. Or it could be said and it really wouldn't even matter. It really was only my 4th timeline or so when I got a ending where a character goes, "Oh, this timeline." But honestly, if you had just gone down one timeline there, you still easily could have not realized that there was a timeline mechanic at all. And there's still in Virtue's Last Reward just a ridiculous amount of repeated content, ridiculous amount of repeated dialogue. More and more on the branches I'm taking, we're finding bombs placed, which in 6 out of 9 branches, there was no bombs mentioned at all. So that the question is, do the bombs show up when you hit a level of completion, or do they just happen to be on a certain branch? It changes the equation a lot, because on one hand, it would make a lot of sense to jump around to the spots where you still need to unlock the previously locked paths to get those endings, and not see the repeated content. But there is almost an argument that you should potentially start the entire game over and play it. And that's that was bad. Yeah, because it may very well be a case that the playing the exact same timeline the same way may actually reveal a lot different dialogue, as more and more secret pieces of conversation might unlock, but I don't think that's really the case. I also feel like it would be fairly easy, even though the game does have a flow system that shows you what you've done before. I think it would be fairly easy to accidentally not really know whether you've done something before and just repeat the same area again, getting the exact same ending more than once. And that would be really frustrating, certainly, for a player. But yeah, I've just been trying to power through Virtue's Last Reward with 3 hour. I did a 4-hour episode. It's still gonna be quite a long experience, even doing such long episodes. Undoubtedly, the long episodes of anything don't really work. If I was smarter and wanted to just spend more time on it, I would potentially break up these live streams into like hour-long live streams. Some people definitely like the longer stuff. That's that's true too. But I see my watch time, and even having someone support me quite a bit, like the last stream, and talk to me, that gave me on average a 25-minute watch time on a 3-hour or 2.5-hour live stream, somewhere between 2.5 hours and 3 hours. Which, that's not to blame the people that watched it as much as it just shows how easy it is to drop watch time, because they average in everybody who clicks on a video and then immediately clicks off of it, including, I think, a lot of bots and things like that. And 25-minute watch time is way better than 30-second watch time than I've had on some videos. Let's do this. And then do this. And then do this. And hit that. And then the turn. I think you have to win here. So if I let this person win, that we've not communicated in any way. So if this person wins, will they play me again and or will they just take the money and run? And that's like the 4th private match I've done. So I'm going to click ready and hope, fingers crossed, that they won't just leave. And they leave. So instead of wasting time here, let's see, I'm going to type in the same code again into the form. Let's see. 3, 4, 7, 7, 8. TTAS is what they're labeling it as. Take 2 all stars. And then I'm going to say need win. And we'll see if that works. Let's create that deck. People definitely are fast.
Offer up thy woes.
I didn't keep any of those cards from what it seems like. So select that. This private match system though is just garbage. It really is a garbage system that I think I need a win. I could actually be wrong about that. That was probably a wrong pick. I'm not getting offered a lot of good stuff. Had some really good offers that first deck build. But I guess it doesn't matter. I'm getting the itch to work on my server, and that'll be pretty much the last of my accountability section. There's since I'm trying to set up a universal plug and play server, and basically I had to set up 2. Well, I'm now trying to test some video files, and the video files are not being provided the correct way via AirSonic. So I'm not sure if there's a transcoding thing there I can do, or if it's just a matter of the fact that since MKV files, which are the de facto standard for a container now, contain so many competing standards as far as codecs, that I probably need to make sure all the video files are in a format that that makes sense to the TVs I wanted to stream to. Oddly, right now I'm in a situation where the video files I have will stream via mini DLNA, Ready Media, DNLA, whatever that's called. It's so many different names. It can be found and streamed on that, but it can't be found on AirSonic. Ready Media Mini DLNA also has a issue, certainly, where there's really not a lot of configuration there, so it just works. And so that would because it just works, it works, but inherently still trying to use the Dish Hopper / Joey's home media has a problem there, because it seems to default to an audio track that in these audio files that have multiple audio tracks is just the background music in most of the videos, in the couple test videos I have, and it's a actual audio description track otherwise. So on one TV, the exact same files will play the wrong audio, and on the other TV, the files will play, but they only play using mini DLNA. They won't play using AirSonic, which does kind of describe the nature of why it became an issue where we needed to where I needed two different servers there, is because there's AirSonic is just not really great at being a DLNA server. But then also mini DLNA doesn't make thumbnails, so I'm thinking I'm gonna install a automatic thumbnail generator to try and automate this whole process. And I'm gonna use Docker Compose, hopefully, if I can get it all to work, to run a special setup of Handbrake, which is the Linux reencoder, and I'll have to set up some kind of profiles and hopefully get it to work where where the like all videos in a certain folder will just automatically get re-encoded to a lower resolution, and I'll probably have to make two different encodes. The way I was setting up this whole system was I have like a folder called videos, and under that I have two subfolders called _high and _low, and I'll probably add a third folder called _import. And what it should do is take all the videos from the high format, the unchanged format, and decide to encode those to a different format, probably twice. One that doesn't change the video quality or audio quality much, but maybe encodes it into something that AirSonic can work with better. And in all fairness, AirSonic's webpage part of that does work perfectly fine. It's just the other part of it doesn't really work. The DLNA part.
I await the day I can be of service.
Let's see. Is there anything here that an evolve would be useful for? Next time it takes damage, it'll be 0.
I am the protector, as ordained in my mission.
Well, that would have been way better. That would have been way better to have put that on somebody that could actually do some damage. So that summons a dutiful steed. Interesting. I don't even know how at the end of the turn. Oh, I guess you could get play points back other ways.
It can't end like this.
So yeah, I'm thinking I need to do some more research in making thumbnails and Handbrake. I need to still set up an SFTP server on it and haven't gotten around to that. I haven't done any work on it in a couple of weeks, which is fine. There definitely are some scenarios where I may just get busy and completely abandon working on the server any further. At least it's somewhat working at the moment. Although I have yet to completely give up on the idea of having a
Activating system interface subroutine.
recovering any of the old data. Like that's still just wasting those hard drives and crunching the numbers and probably not accomplishing anything. And I need to abandon that part too. There's no reason to give it more time. Okay, so then we should start covering the video game news instead of me just getting quiet here. I also upload some videos, and I'm trying to get better at making sure videos get uploaded. When I was opening all of the news for today, there was something weird on Twitter, but then it seemed to fix itself, where for just a moment there, I was missing a lot of the what's on Steam feed, so there was very, very few tabs. But then I went back and checked it, and now we have a normal complement. Plus we have the Video Game Awards, which I did actually watch and take some extra time to let that live stream and watch someone else watch it, and not really didn't really matter much, frankly. What was going on. It wasn't going to matter much, but there are a couple of announcements. I guess I could have played a puppet there. And see, I need to be kind of a nice person if I win here, and click ready and then let them win after this. Plus, it wouldn't hurt me to play one private match. Okay. So start of your next turn, I don't take 8 damage. So that's pretty much the best bet.
Control is not the same as shackles.
You were kinda haunted. No, literally.
Alright, so think I can win here. Got lucky. Yep. He did 0 damage. Which means I can just take a victory. So, yeah. There isn't a lot to say in the Video Game Awards. I'm just gonna click ready, and if he decides not to click ready and leave, that's fine. Then I'll leave, and then we're done with the private matches. but otherwise I'm just passing this turn and just gonna let him win, just for tit for tat reasons. There was some announcements certainly, but not a lot, frankly. There wasn't anything really surprising. The Game Awards, I kind of have this problem where, in particular, it's like it's so insidery. It's such the inside cool kids group. They, like when you have Nolan North there, and when you have uh when you have Keanu Reeves there, and there's not anybody who feels like they're anything other than just a professional that is working a job and doesn't really care about it, which at a certain level that might be better than what we get a lot of other times. I would much prefer the likes of Morgan Webb and Adam Sessler, who felt like real gamers and could pander to that, whereas the Game Awards much more feels like the Oscars, where everybody, like the Oscars are a great example, like all these actors and actresses who we've seen have scandals and get drunk and get arrested, all of a sudden show up in fancy suits and dresses and try to act professional and try to establish a level of decorum that is just not true amongst the functioning alcoholics that we know video game developers are. So it just feels fake, the whole thing. Where I would much prefer if XPlay or G4 had their own Game Awards. And that particularly clashes in this instance because they have, this year they had Devolver Digital basically try and do their same shtick with having a pre-show for the Game Awards, but it once again just kind of falls flat, and it feels like Devolver Digital in this case pulled back some punches as far as the stupidity around these kinds of award shows in the first place. I think also there's perhaps a slightly different feeling that I have with E3, which is just ridiculous. Why did it not work? Play 1, Take 2 All-Stars private match. Solo. Multiplayer, private. Create a private match. Take 2. Match type. I screwed up. I screwed up previously, didn't I? Ah, this sucks. Yes, totally sucks. Let's see if we can really quickly jump into this. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to snipe this as fast enough, I'm almost certain. 91407. That whole thing was a waste.
I'll start preparing.
That whole thing was a complete waste. Like, both of those games don't matter. And choosing whatever you choose doesn't matter. So when I made some of these, they turned into Take-Two All-Stars, but by default they didn't all turn into Take-Two All-Star games. I'm just trying to rush as quickly as possible here. That's not a terrible experience by any means, though, because it does pretty much help you to still get those multiplayer games, which there was a advancement or something around that.
You must die.
I would say AMD and Omen live streaming service, which is like an HP game streaming service as far as I can tell. Their ads seemed fairly prevalent in the Game Awards. It definitely feels like this year Sony Interactive Entertainment didn't have any budget to advertise there, and because of that they see this guy said he was going to pass, so if he starts playing I'm going to be fairly screwed. Summon 2 knights. But yeah, it definitely felt like some advertisements and for everything, and in a real weird way, there is a slight difference there between the advertising of E3 and announcing of games and the awarding of games. So the Game Awards themselves just don't feel like the place where you should have game premieres, and that's something I guess I wouldn't have really thought of or considered, because you know that
That's mine.
let's go ahead and evolve this.
You're done for.
Revealing your riches, eh? Don't mind if I do.
Nothing scary with allies by your side. Me. No one gets past me.
Seeing that this guy started playing, so I want to be careful here and try and actually win. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that though. The E3 is just a different experience, and it has to kind of be treated as a
True virtue.
different experience.
Guess I got
Don't
too
mind if I
close.
do.
Come get some. Nothing scary with allies by your side. Me. No one gets past me.
And so we'll try and cover all the announcements, but we'll cover them later. Otherwise, I suppose everybody is just kind of playing CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077, if they're doing anything.
If I do.
Come get some. Nothing scary with allies by your side.
So that guy mostly passed. Is there a reason when we battled 6? Let's see. We'll see if this guy is gonna leave. Alright, so he left. Good. Fair enough. I won't take up somebody's time as they're trying to help other people. And you definitely saw how difficult that whole thing was, really. Now it's just about playing matches and getting victories to try and get this card pack. And see, we battled 4, which gives us 100 rupees. We battled 5, which gives us another 100 rupees. We battled 6, which gives us another rupees. And then the next requirement would be to play 7. And yeah, as far as these achievement star systems go, there's definitely some that will, if I just keep on playing, come about. We've won 308 match games, where there's others where it's like win 5 take 2 matches is doable. Winning all 5 take 2 matches 3 times, though, is less doable. Win 6 open matches, but then win all 5 open matches is less doable. Certain ranks, like, probably just not going to likely get that high easily. Getting to rank B, for instance. We're getting the master. Let's see, yeah. There's still a ton of things also that we've just already done. And then battle pass missions. Haven't really been looking at any of these. Win 15 matches as Forestcraft. Win 15 matches as Swordcraft. Which 15 matches of Runecraft. Where did these Battle Pass missions come from? They're about to end on December 27th. But yeah, Swordcraft I suppose would be the one you would want to try and win here. Okay. So come over here, unranked, unlimited, Swordcraft, go. Alright, so I had been also concerned, and pretty much like clockwork, the concern and the timer has been reset. Seems like every 2 or 3 weeks on a Friday, all the adult games get released on Steam. It seems very much like somebody intentionally tries to bury adult games as whoever's in charge of releasing them. That would be insanely suspect for any platform, but particularly one where there's an approval process. Like Steam. Like, it would be very, very weird if every 2 weeks on a Friday all the spicy videos on YouTube got released, and that's not because people were intentionally scheduling them on those days. It was because they were getting delayed. But speaking of spicy, we have a game here called USSR Life, which is just a troll meme game. And this too is getting delayed. 59 cents, claims to be full audio in a bunch of languages. Obviously this is not a game of any quality, so it does not deserve to be on the fall list.
How's everyone doing tonight?
So that also kind of puts you in the same mindset as far as you know where whoever is in charge of approving the games considers what kind of games they consider the bad games. Whereas I would argue there's a slight difference. There's probably a difference in sales. It would be a sad statement if it actually turned out that the meme games sold as well, if not better, than the adult games, the anime games. Let's see, do I want to kill somebody? No, because like the very next game we have here on Steam is called Love Puzzle, which it has an anime girl, but then you can see is just a low effort box sliding puzzle game with some anime girls, but it's not even tagged with nudity or anything. This is $1.69 English only, so I think at the best you're gonna do these low effort puzzle games and you're going to get a still maybe a slightly animated scene of perhaps a lewd perspective if you want to look at it that way, but I doubt it's even going to really satisfy if you tried that. Let's see, let's go ahead and hit that. Next we have a game on Steam here called Ring of Fire Prologue, which is tagged as a hidden object interactive fiction game. And this looks more polished than what you would assume just with those two tags. This actually looks like something, but it's a prologue for something, so it's English full audio. The game is not even listed yet on the storefront, but I would be interested in that. You would think that with there being a decent number of announcements, some of which were Nintendo announcements at the Game Awards, that then there would be a decent number of new games or demos for new games that showed up on Steam. But this year Valve and Steam weren't paying for the advertisement either by the looks of it. So instead while there are some demos for some games on Steam, they were heavily pushing, I believe, the Epic Games Store, or Good Old Games. I think it was Epic Games Store. And some of the announcements, like Master Chief in Fortnite, really go to show that Microsoft is buddying up to Epic and Fortnite developer, and that is allowing these kind of collaborations to happen. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if it was a case that because Microsoft supported Epic's lawsuit against Apple, that was the beginning of the communications to get Master Chief in Fortnite. And in all fairness, it's a really good idea for Microsoft to do something with Master Chief soon to make people potentially forget about the fact that Halo Infinity is delayed now to the fall of 2021, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's delayed even further. And I've definitely heard people say, seeing how Cyberpunk 2077 is such a buggy mess, I've heard people say now that they feel like Halo Infinite made the right decision to care about the game and delay it, which at the core of that idea, that's right in my mind too, is that you should probably applaud every company that delays a product and makes the game a well-polished, successful game first on day one, on launch, instead of having to listen to potentially a lot of complaints or release a day one patch. Next, we have a game on Steam called Never Going Home, which it looks like the game Among Us, as far as the characters, if they were drawn worse. And it looks to me like it's just a top-down player versus player game shooter. It's $1.19. It's single player. It's not even player versus player. It's English and Chinese. So this is the beginning here of seeing just low effort. In this case, Chinese, but I imagine we'll start to see a lot of low effort Among Us clones. And we'll be seeing Among Us clones, I imagine, for quite a while until the next big thing happens. And then after a few months after the next big thing, we'll start seeing some other things. It was Battle Royale games before that. It was survival games before that. I don't know if this cycle of stealing other people's ideas inherently is improving the quality of games, or if it's potentially just wasting everybody's time.
It won't be long now. Warning, there's nothing as my guitar gently beats.
There we go. Next, we have a game on Steam called One Circle, which looks to me like it's a 2048 game where you match colors instead of numbers. So you mix the two colors together in the circle, and they change a different color, and then that'll get you to the next step. It's only really explained in the video. So yeah, you mix them, and then you mix them. And I don't even think it's really going down like a rainbow colors palette. It goes like red, purple, green, and then a light purple. This is 69 cents, English only. Yeah, there's really nothing there. See, next we have Schoolmates, The Mystery of the Magic Bracelet, a hidden object game from HH Games, which looks older than December 11th, 2020 for sure. It also looks like it might be targeted towards kids, and it might be a very low effort game at that. I also feel like though that the price here is better than than what we've seen with Big Fish Games, which, in all fairness, I think Big Fish Games has given up on listing things on Steam because I haven't seen anything. This is $4.49. I don't see any reason to put it on the pull list.
You must die.
Yeah, these 3D models are kind of the exact same issue I'm having with Virtue's Last Reward, where the 3D models just don't look good, and there was no reason for a hidden object game to use 3D models, and there's no reason for Virtue's Last Reward as a visual novel to use 3D models. So, yeah, people got very obsessed with moving towards 3D without actually being capable of reaching those heights. I frankly would not have been upset if 90% of all games were still 2D even in 2020, and only the AAA games would even bother to go into 3D, instead of the split we have now, where I would say probably 80% of all games are 3D, but they don't look particularly great, and the top 10% of AAA games are in now hyper-realistic 3D high polygon models with ray tracing and high levels of texturing and shading. I think Big Fish Games might have run into some like corporate troubles of some sort, and so it would make a lot of sense if that was the case, that nothing is being sold. The other business side thing, Funimation has bought Crunchyroll from Sony, I believe, or Funimation is part of Sony. I think Sony bought Funimation a few years ago, and now Funimation has bought Crunchyroll. So now Sony owns Funimation, which is mostly mediocre at best, I would say, anime shows that get made and published. I wouldn't say that. No, that's not even fair. I'd say Funimation is right in the middle. It's an average anime producer, developer. Like, some other shows are good, some other shows are bad. At least that's what I think. It's been a very long time since I've been deep in the anime to the point where I could tell you who's good and who's bad. And anime in particular is so much about the show of the moment that it very well could be that Funimation had a big hit last season and then they're already forgotten about by the next season. But now that Sony owns Funimation, they own all the Funimation anime lineups, and because they own Crunchyroll, which was the anime streaming service, streaming service, which I don't feel like Crunchyroll has been well received, particularly lately. I feel like they were always getting made fun of as far as the Crunchyroll Awards, them trying to have an awards where they give all their awards only to things that either they produced or that they have on their streaming service, which is not a full listing of what would have come out in a season. The issue, I would say, more than any other streaming service is that Crunchyroll, as an anime focused streaming service, has to really, really keep its fans happy, because the fans of anime are usually very well versed in the ability to torrent or otherwise VPN and stream video through some other service. So there is definitely a case there where if people are not happy with Crunchyroll, they will just leave. Feel like Crunchyroll has probably been behind a few of the controversies in the past 5 years of censorship, which also that's not going to keep the fan base very happy. As far as anime fans, they definitely don't want to be censored too. I'm trying to look at the bottom of all of my anime DVDs, and I have a whole bunch of ADV, and I don't even think that's... I'm not sure ADV is even in business anymore. Yeah, it very well may be that Funimation just didn't even really exist when I was buying anime DVDs. So I don't think I have a single DVD under that label. That's not to say that I don't have some show that was where the license transferred over to Funimation. That's very believable. Is this the officer? Yes.
My ally is justice.
So I can do something like that.
Years still turn.
And then I can go ahead and hit that. And that. And then that.
Let's speed things up.
And then that. And then we'll go ahead and just evolve here. As far as how Funimation owning Crunchyroll affects video games, it barely does, but it does kind of show a focus of Sony, which we've seen certainly. We are definitely in a time right now where AT&T's bought Warner Brothers, so Warner Brothers potentially may not be moving in the same direction or focused around WB Games or Lego Games from Traveler's Tales, TT Games. So that might be a focus. Sony is not interested, and I don't think Sony as a big corporation has ever really been super focused on Sony Interactive Entertainment, since that's a fairly split off company. But it does kind of show that there's probably more focus overall from the higher ups on trying to figure out how Sony movies and Sony music can continue to make profit in this new world. Then there's a focus to perhaps give some of their focus and some of their budget towards making sure there are good exclusives and licenses. Right. Here we go. Next we have a game on Steam here called Brutality Club, which looks like it's just a low effort fight club concept fighting game. It's a little surprising that there isn't just a fight club video game that would have come out around the time the movie Fight Club came out, but I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that, and frankly it would be easier to make a fighting game and with more varied backgrounds and interesting backgrounds than everybody fighting in a dark warehouse. This is English only, and again, just nothing there. Let's do that. And then do that.
And be blessed.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Gunspell 2 Match 3 Puzzle RPG. Which is just a match 3 game with
In this war.
some other elements to it. If this is visually polished a little bit better, I would be interested in it, but this art in particular, while it's nicely drawn, does kind of feel like it was just pre-purchased. You just have too many characters that seem to be from completely different universes. And yeah, when you see this feels very much like a low-effort hidden object game, and seeing coins and cell phone indicators makes it definitely feel like a cell phone game. It's free to play with in-app purchases, which I wouldn't really want to find out what those in-app purchases are.
I want to see those smiles.
I feel like there was another story I wanted to talk about, and let me see if I can look it up. Well, it's one of the it's one of the announcements, so I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, looking now at my news source, yeah, AT&T, which would have been the parent company of WB, but they may have owned Crunchyroll from a different acquisition, certainly sold Funimation for $1.2 billion, which that's big numbers, and that certainly makes Crunchyroll seem like it's that makes it sound like something bigger than I think it really is. Here, I could potentially have him card out.
I do not know what winds whisper me here.
If I just don't play this. It's a save your turn if it's the 10th turn or more. Draw a card, but he destroyed it. Darn it.
Kids these days have got no manners.
Although I don't know, he may be trying to card out himself. Or deck out.
Fear and despair are no match for me. Don't call me short. The light of courage will pierce the darkness. Shine forth.
At your service.
You can count on me, Lucia.
Maybe this time I can fade completely.
Do I want to keep Bane?
What do you think you're doing?
Limited merchandise. What a crop. No one gets past me.
5 damage to all enemies. Hmm.
100% string and 0% fluff.
I do not know what
Yeah, I'm gonna lose next turn unless I can make him draw 11 cards in one turn.
Maybe this time I can fade completely.
Don't call me short. An exemplary battle.
So I would say it was probably 2-3 months ago. And certainly if you don't want to believe me, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to not believe me on the statement I'm about to make. But because I'm not going to be able to hunt down the quote. But I was talking about it about 2 or 3 months ago, where I had looked at a lot of the original Xbox games and the original like launch titles as far as the Xbox 360. This is not magical thinking by any means. If you're going to release a new series console, Xbox, in the form of Xbox Series X and Series S, you would look at the launch titles of the previous generation and just see, hey, how do they compare? And one game that shot out and stood out as a game that where they really have not made a new version of that, and even though there is a fairly large fandom for it, was Perfect Dark. So, during the Video Game Awards, they did announce that they're going to work on a new Perfect Dark game, which is the first new game in that series for 15 years, which is way, way overdue, frankly. Like, also, that doesn't inherently mean it's actually going to ever get made and released. It could be announced and then canceled or get stuck in development hell. I wouldn't be surprised if secretly there was a Perfect Dark game that has been rebooted 2, 3, 4, 5 times over the past 15 years. And I can make the exact same announcement or proclamation or just outwardly spoken thought if you look at some of the launch titles on the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation 4. There's definitely some games out there that have not gotten sequels or remasters or remakes or anything. Heavenly Sword is kind of a great example of that. I feel like the Uncharted series could get remasters or remakes for the PlayStation 5. There's easy things that you could just instantly point to and say, yeah, that's something. I thought for when watching one trailer that they were going to announce a new Time Splitters game, perhaps, and no, they didn't do that, but it would be easy and unsurprising if a new Time Splitters game was announced. I think THQ Nordic owns that, so decent chance there. In fact, there was already a tease about that just a couple weeks ago where people talked about it and irritated the Time Splitters fans because they didn't promise anything that like it was actually under development. Moving on, we have a game called Lost Astronaut. You can pretty well tell I didn't curate anything here. This is a low texture lander game where you're trying to use maneuvering thrusters to move yourself around lasers, which that does not look fun to me. 79 cents, English only. It really just feels like much like the lunar lander games that existed many decades ago. Those were not interesting experiences. They were frustrating nightmares. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that Sephiroth has been added to Smash Brothers, which, okay, yeah, that probably will get the Final Fantasy people very excited. And if you don't know anything about Final Fantasy, then you probably won't be very excited about it. You could potentially try to whitewash the current events as far as the Smash Brothers tournament fandom being mad at Nintendo for DMCAing a tournament that tried to use a mod to do it online because they needed to socially distance, and then Nintendo canceling the next tournament allegedly because the team names in the next tournament were the spelling support for the previous tournament. So I think Nintendo more than likely would like to hope that everything is now all just honky-dory and they just can throw the fandom a bone and they will stop complaining about Nintendo's horrible activity. But I would hope that gamers are getting smarter and more confident to come against the bad practices of companies like Nintendo. we need a lot more consumer pushback on a lot of services and products offered by a lot of different companies, and video games are really no different there. If anything, video games are worse than a lot of companies. I imagine if you took the average number of people that call customer service and complain about internet service providers, water providers, home gas providers, things like that. If you took all those complaints, I bet there's a lot more in any of those industries than there are in the video game industry, where it is mostly kids and they just roll over and take it. Moving on, we have a game here on Steam called Alba, a Wildlife Adventure. I wanted to say Alibaba, but that's not it. That's crazy to take 4 letters and turn it into a 6-letter word. Tagged female protagonist adventure. This to me looks like a almost Pokemon Snap adventure game. From the video, yeah, I'm not getting a lot from the screenshots. It has this kind of unique art style. You seem to be running around and jumping. There seems to be a bridge you have to fix. You can see ducks. You seem to have a guidebook like a Pokedex. She seems to tie her shoes as a lynx sneaks behind her. She talks to people and she takes pictures with her phone. This may not be really that structurally anything. They save a dolphin. Honestly, this may be much more of a linear experience. It's $13.59, which is a fairly expensive price, and a bunch of languages. I'm willing to put this on the follow list, but like all games, it needs more reviews. It's from the creators of Monument Valley and something else. What did that just say before that? From the creators of Assemble and Land's End, Assemble with Care and Land's End, and Monument Valley. Which...
You've tormented this city for too long.
Oops. Missed a turn there. I haven't played Assemble with Care or Land's End, but I can say Monument Valley 1 and 2 I've played, and those were very straightforward puzzle cell phone games. There's nothing wrong with them if you get them for free. They're too expensive when they're normally on sale. That they don't have hundreds of puzzles in them.
My mission is complete.
So, knowing my experience with Monument Valley, I wouldn't be surprised if Alba, a Wildlife Adventure, actually is maybe at most a 5-hour linear experience and doesn't get any further down the rabbit hole as far as that goes. So what I'm thinking here, we have a game on Steam called Seek Girl 7 from DS Game. It's rated very positively. It's tagged, of course, sexual content, and I think you can fairly guess where the focus here on this is going to be. It's a Sokoban game, which to me seems like a box puzzle pushing game. But at the very least, if I was going to play a box pushing game, I would be much more interested in that. Full Japanese, English, and Chinese subtitles. What I want to keep an eye out here for is DS Game the only publisher of these adult games this Friday? Because then that might indicate something. Also, we might be seeing a case where several of the adult game publishers have either been kind of stonewalled and not allowed to potentially list any more games on the Steam or
The pleasure was all mine.
or just completely blacklisted. Like, that would be slightly different. Almost certainly I would have heard the news. Apparently I have another whole quest now to play a private match. So do I want to try and get a ranked match, or do I want to try and play private match again for another tournament ticket, which the Grand Prix tickets I don't feel like probably are even that useful. I know Manga Gamer in particular was not particularly happy with Steam, and I don't think Steam was particularly happy with Manga Gamer in particular either, because it seemed like Manga Gamer was either giving a lot of pushback to Steam on what was getting allowed and what wasn't getting allowed, and being a very squeaky wheel about it, or Manga Gamer was actually pushing the limits as far as what was they were trying to list on Steam. Although I'm not sure I particularly believe, like, yeah, I really am not sure I particularly believe that Manga Gamer was going wildly off in a direction. And certainly a lot of the adult games seem to make enough money through their own publishing sites to the point where they don't really seem to care. Let's see. See if we can catch another private code and join a private match. 5, 8, 2, 4, 8. Nope. Then 8, 3, 3, 2, 3. Nope. So we're just back to this because the reset time on all of this is crazy. So I'm just going back into the forum and posting my number again. And then I think very quickly somebody will join. And if we wait just a second, we should be able to start building a deck. Meanwhile, we have a game on Steam here called the Rogue Production Facility, which looks like it's just not a visually polished enough real-time strategy game that actually interests me. It does kind of have a feeling of almost being like a Pikmin game, in the sense that you sometimes seem to fight larger characters, and I guess some of that would make sense. That kind of is what Pikmin is. Pikmin is an interesting combination of real-time strategy game with also some resource management in it also. That took longer than before.
We draw closer.
And then this time we'll try and win, because I did not specifically say I was going to pass or anything like that. But that does kind of imply that I need to be able to know what cards do what. And odds of that are fairly low for Havencraft. So yeah, I'm trying my best here. Honestly, getting just a bunch of legendary cards also doesn't inherently make a synergy that means you'll win. You could probably very easily lose with a deck full of these kinds of cards. And it might be wise to try and focus around 3 or 4 mana cards more than something else. Next, we have a game on Steam called VR Skydiving, which just is not visually polished enough. It's apparently you're skydiving from the back of a bird.
My claws
It's
thirst for
$3.59, bunch of languages. I feel like anyone who has been skydiving would probably say VR skydiving is not anywhere close to it, that experience. You don't have the wind on your face, you don't have the feel of falling. I feel like if you were going to do a VR skydiving experience, you probably would need to be training to do a real skydive. And there would need to be a lot of very accurate graphics and visualizations there for that to offer anything. On the other hand, if you were to tell me that a Uncharted game was out there, or a Tomb Raider game was out there where there was a skydiving section, and they did a really good job of that, that would be a fine section to have in a game. But obviously we haven't seen too much of that. It would be very believable to have a Tomb Raider section where you're skydiving and someone is trying to shoot at you, or you have to shoot at other people as you're falling. Next, we have a game on Steam called Snow Strike. This is from 1990. It's a like missile fighting game, fighter jet fighting game from Epix, publishing old games for $3.39, which it's a little expensive, but it's not crazy if somebody had nostalgia for that game to ask them to pay a little bit for that, for the privilege of playing an old game. At least that's the way the world works right now. I have an argument in my head that even something from 1990 that's probably been abandoned for 30 years should probably just be public domain at this point, but a lot of people are not going to agree with me on that. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Fabrication, which just looks like an RPG Maker game, so there's nothing new to say here. $8.99, English only, full audio allegedly. A lot of games here I could have curated. Alright, let's see, this next game looks like it's a little bit spicier, so I want to make sure it's not showing anything that's YouTube family unfriendly. It's pushing the line, but I don't think it goes over. Here we have a Chinese game, and this is from Philosophy Female Sign, developer and BVR game. And it seems to be a combination of simplistic like match 3 games and other kinds of like Zuma games. With anime girls in the background. Yeah, $2.69, probably too expensive there. English, Chinese, Japanese, I'd suspect this is a Chinese game. It doesn't even have an English title though, so that would put it out of contention if it weren't for the fact that the quality alone puts it out of contention. Interesting.
A bear a day keeps the doctor away.
But yeah, that definitely was a game that was from a new publisher and a new developer. So seemingly there was no extra limitations on that. Also, I guess if it's a Chinese game, this is the type of game that would almost certainly not be allowed on the Chinese Steam store or in China in general. So that's another consideration.
How long can you endure?
It may very well just be Manga Gamer. The one thing I really haven't been seeing a ton of are visual novels of either nature, either adult games or otherwise, and I was chalking that up to the pandemic up until this point, but I'm starting to wonder, frankly, if it's not a bigger issue of something else. Maybe Valve has finally decided they just don't want any more visual novels, which would be insane.
Holy jump!
But it also wouldn't be the first time I've seen a company be being talked into going against its own interest and making less of a profit in the name of some ideology. In this case, getting rid of visual novels, which we know all the Western video game developers refuse to touch visual novels completely. And effectively, you can assume from that that's because they hate them. But they also heavily refuse to touch most non-Western focused games anyways. And you certainly saw that at the Game Awards. There's, from what I could tell, basically one Japanese game, one Japanese developer that got an award, and everybody else was snubbed. Lots of people were snubbed in the Game Awards. The number of listings in the categories are far too minimal for that concept. There needed to have been 20 or 30 nominated games in every category, and instead they got it down to 5. Next we have a game on Steam here called Cosmic Cop, spelled very weirdly, animated very weirdly, selling for $5.99 English only. Yeah, it's another no from me. And then we have Drugs and Crime Idol, which that's a low effort title for a low effort game. It's free to play with a DLC for $4.99. Once again, no. Next we have a game on Steam called The Normal Thing, which seems like it is a potential horror point and click adventure, but I think it might be Chinese looking at the writing here. It's free. It's English and Korean. So it's a free to play Korean game. Okay, if this interests you, check it out. If it doesn't, then I think you'd probably be in the majority there. Let's see, how can we do this?
We're just getting started, right?
Hope, dreams, all a farce.
This does 1 damage to all followers every time somebody attacks it.
The real battle begins.
Those wings have fallen wretched.
Here I go! Here I go!
And then buffed that up. Interesting. Okay. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Torto Curse Divine. Torto Cursed Divine. It's like 3 words that don't mean anything back to back. It looks to me like it's a pretty much frustration platforming game with some hack and slash attacking and shooting thrown in. $4.19, English only. I don't see enough polish on it quite. So I'm gonna say no to that. So here, TechRaptor has an article, and we're probably gonna now start to be split more amongst articles and game listings, because that was all the catch-up listings that I had missed. Mass Effect will continue after a surprise world premiere trailer at 2020. Honestly, I feel like they have to. It's hard to make the argument that there is a path in which they can just abandon Mass Effect. The fandom and the reception of it was big enough, and it was advertised well enough that I don't think you can really do anything else.
Let us conclude.
See.
Want true strength? Then you gotta go all out. It's like being hit by air.
I've lost you.
Okay. So yeah, I feel like the thing here, particularly with the Mass Effect series, is they're going to have to try to just reboot the whole Mass Effect. Notice that this is just labeled as Mass Effect, no subtitle. They'll probably put out some other teaser. Notice that you have a blue alien, and she's picking up an N7 bracelet Omni tool, I believe is what that is. And the graphics in this look way better than any of the previous Mass Effects game. The hint here is that it also will be in the Milky Way galaxy, so they're not going to touch upon Andromeda. They're going to forget about that. But they are batting 50% in my book as far as Mass Effects, because I feel like Mass Effect 1's gameplay wasn't that good, but the story lifted it up, and then the ending was severely disappointing to anybody in Mass Effect 3, and people, I think, generally like Mass Effect 2, but then they generally hate Mass Effect Andromeda, so almost certainly if a new Mass Effect game flops, they could not justify doing any more Mass Effect at all, and they very well shouldn't. They very well should consider instead having a game that feels a lot like Mass Effect but does not have any of the baggage of Mass Effect. Something where they could see. If I play this, I'll win. Is there a better way to win? Fusion card.
He's out there.
Let's do this.
I knew it.
Tremble, for judgment is yet
Do
to
that.
come. You
Oh,
look
Serpent
well.
King.
Yeah. I think those two synergized nicely together. Gematsu has this article. The Fortnite character outfit Master Chief from Halo now available. Daryl Dixon and Michonne from The Walking Dead coming December 16. You can see how many different platforms Fortnite is on at the moment. There is also, I believe, some other Fortnite things, including a area, region.
I envy you.
Oh, you just had to play them. You didn't have to win. Thank goodness. Well, then I'm not gonna trade back and forth to win the take-twos. That makes that way nicer. I suppose Shadowverse does do a decent job of not really forcing you into situations you don't really want to be in, where you have to win or play private matches that often. Winning 7 to 10 games in a lifetime isn't asking that much. But yeah, their private match system still is pretty bad. Gamatsu has an article here. Ruined King, a League of Legends story gameplay trailer and screenshots have now been taken out, shown now, off. It's maybe a little too late to have a single player turn-based RPG based on League of Legends. I don't know if there's any growing or new fandom as far as League of Legends, but I could also see this game, Ruined King, just being good enough on its own that it might catch some people's attention. Also, though, it could be the exact opposite of that. It could not be good enough on its own, and the only reason why you might even want to play it is because of League of Legends characters, of which I know none of. Like, I know 0 League of Legends characters. None of these people are recognizable. So to me, this game looks fine. It seems like it is just a collection of a bunch of weird heroes, and that's it. And maybe if you compared that to something like Diablo 1, where there were different characters you could select and play as, but they were all in a fantasy world, it's going to be, frankly, a coin flip, I think, in my mind, as far as whether I like the idea of disconnected heroes, but more heroes, over the idea of connected heroes that feel like they belong in that universe, but there's fewer of them.
May the forest be at peace.
Let's see. Here we go. Oddly, Xbox, I guess, is the best place to get the major announcements from the Game Awards. Let's see. So here's a list of nominees from Xbox specifically, I think, and not the winners. Perfect Dark was announced. Master Chief is in Fortnite. Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming to the Xbox Series X and S summer 2021. Cyberpunk 2077 comes to Forza Horizon 4 in the form of the car skin.
Let's play. Help me, fairies.
Let's see, what else have we got? Discounts and demos. Warhammer 40k, Darktide gameplay. Among Us is coming to Xbox Games Pass for PC. And then they're just talking about all the games that they nominated. So that's a fairly biased reporting, since they're only really talking about the things on Xbox. And the fact that you can get away with that seems weird. Because at a certain level, I think the Game Awards probably needs to think about being more protective of their brand and their title, to the level of not allowing other companies to use their brand as advertisement. Although I guess that's exactly the whole point of it existing, so it might be hypocritical, certainly, to make that complaint. 18 hours ago, Twitch support said that earlier that day, or today, I suppose it's still today, we were made aware of a site embedding creator streams in a way that violates our guidelines, which we have since blocked. The safety of our community is top priority, and we're deeply disappointed in this abuse of our content creators. Also, it might be worth mentioning that Cyberpunk also did not put all the music that should have been in the disabled copyrighted music option in that option. So even if you were using the disabled copyright music, the fact that they're not like freeing you from all claims and indemnifying you, which they would never do, puts you at this risk. So anybody who's really streaming at the moment, Cyberpunk 2077 on Twitch, should be doing it completely silenced, even in combat. That's what I hear. I am interested to see what site this was, but
Oh, come on! Ow! Ow!
apparently there's no API key safeguards, and you can just embed videos anywhere. Although at a certain point, embedding, if you're getting the views, is fine. So one would assume that they were embedding in such a way that the views weren't going towards the creator. One assumes. I suppose it is video game newsworthy to say that apparently this just happened. Unbox Therapy, I believe, has been apparently banned from getting review units from NVIDIA because they chose to focus on rasterization functions on the latest NVIDIA 380 or 390 or whatever it is, whatever the latest card would have been that they would have been looking at, instead of focusing on RTX, which, yeah, it's fairly obvious that the NVIDIA right now wants everybody to talk about the RTX and push the RTX more than anything else. But it is also a prime example of how people who get these early access review units in hardware or in the form of games for video game reviews are beholden to pretty crazy demands and requirements to say only nice things and talk about the things they want them to talk about. It does not at any moment
You must die. Don't underestimate me.
it really does. I lost my train of thought there. Unbox Therapy can be like every other video game hardware reviewer out there, and I would feel really bad for anybody who is dumb enough to think they could be a small-time PC hardware reviewer. Like, the only way I could even see that without having tons of views, tons of followers, tons of funding, secret sponsorships, just getting as much money as possible, is if you had some other side computer business where this made sense, or you were just crazy about building computers and independently wealthy. Linus Tech Tips is kind of the prime example I think of that in the sense that Linus Tech Tips is constantly promoting his own projects and his merchandise store in every single video to afford all the computers he builds, and he also has a ridiculous amount of sponsorships on top of that. So yeah, it's pretty much impossible to listen to anybody as far as computer hardware, and you know, I tend to trust the things I see on Reddit, like PC Master Race and Reddit. I think Build a PC there's a r/build a PC or something like that. I tend to somewhat trust what's being said there, in the idea of that the masses in general might be more accurate than any individual reviewer. I also tend to try and not pay attention to hardware reviews or anything like that, because I've been willing to just lock in myself into gigabyte hardware and NVIDIA graphics, and I would have to hear a really good argument to make any change there. NVIDIA hardware has been good. It's lasted very well. It hasn't broken on me as far as motherboards and video cards. And NVIDIA graphics, I got screwed on, as everybody did, with the 970, because they lied about the speed of the RAM in that one. But my RTX 2080 is perfectly fine. It's working fine. I've not even really played a game to push it to its limits. The moving from an Intel CPU to an AMD CPU apparently turned out to be a smart move for this generation, but a lot of those choices also change every time a new CPU comes out. Let's see. I'm seeing a lot of comments here. But I'm not getting anything that really tells me what was really going on here. I see one comment here that says the websites they are talking about was targeting only female streamers and labeling them as e-girls or Twitch thought streams, basically because a majority of them were using their sexuality as their main content, which at certain points that's maybe a bigger issue, and I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch literally was shut down this site because the site was calling out e-girls and Twitch thoughts for being e-girls and e-thoughts or Twitch thoughts. I guess at a certain point e-thought will become a phrase, won't it? Once Twitch eventually collapses. But then, like, the very next issue I see is fixed the DMCA issues. Yeah, here's another comment. They were stealing female creators' Twitch lives for people to perv on without the creators' knowledge or permission. Inherently, if you're allowing embedding, and I'm gonna back Twitch here for just a brief second. Like, when you make a Twitch account, you almost certainly in the end user license agreement agree to allow embedding. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a blanket feature to disallow embedding on your streams if you don't want embedding. But once you've made that account, either by agreeing to the end user license agreement with Twitch, or once you've not checked the box that says don't allow embedding if such a box exists, you've literally given consent at that point. You've given permission for anybody to embed your video for any reason whatsoever. This is a problem certainly that comes up with open source software all the time, in the sense that unless you're not going to make a very specific license, or where you very specifically limit what people can and can't do with your open source code, people will take it and they will do things, and what they do with it very well might not be the things that you are expecting people to do with it, or that you agree with or want to have associated with your product. And at a certain point, that's just what you've got to rely on, and know that that was the deal you agreed and signed up to originally.
Won't be long now.
It would be a different story in my mind slightly if this was some hack or something that was allowing a video to be embedded when videos have never been allowed to be embedded on Twitch, or it's allowing people to embed videos
An exemplary battle.
when they have specifically said no. Unfortunately, we are in a world when somebody makes a claim that somebody is doing something without someone's knowledge or permission. The truth is, at some point you gave away your right to claim you didn't have knowledge, and you gave away permission. Let's see. Apparently the site was called Bunny Hop. They were harvesting all female streamers and advertising them as those e-girls from Twitch when they were live, and just chatting ASMR, travel, and outdoors, etc. And yeah, they did not check if they included minors in their listings as well. Well, at a certain point, if minors are doing anything that minors shouldn't be allowed to do on Twitch, at a certain point that's the minors and Twitch's fault for allowing that to happen. And I guess Bunny Hop would own a share of that blame for rehosting it, but the way this is being described, if I can be a bit of a contrarian here, seems like Bunny Hop was literally doing nothing wrong. I've gotten down to the memes at this point, trying to read this article, or trying to read these posts. It would have been better for Twitch to name, or at least describe, the site. Like, maybe they don't need to name the site, but describe it, and describe the behavior that they do not apparently they did steal, according to one person, they did steal Twitch's traffic by directly embedding the stream. But I think that argument and then here we have someone talking about how all the nudity in Cyberpunk 2077 is they're afraid they're going to get that they're going to get in trouble with Twitch for all the nudity in Cyberpunk 2077. And then we have another person that says unban this person, unban this person. Yeah, I don't think there's any more I can get from this story, unfortunately. It's just bad journalism, frankly. Like, this is a great example of how if people really are going to do journalism, and I'm definitely not the person who's going to do real journalism, it can just take forever to try and sort through all the garbage and get around, in this case, Twitch support, kind of stonewalling people as far as giving details, at least as far as what the behavior is. And I guess, like, if I was going to do journalism, I would have emailed them and said, hey, can you give us more details so we can better discuss this or better report this. But one point to point out here is one comment here says, I know you can disable embeds inside your video settings. Why can't you do this in Twitch? I bet you can do this in Twitch. I bet somewhere there is something that says you can do that in Twitch. If not, that's on Twitch. And digging deeper, it does seem like a enterprising site called Bunny Hop decided to use the embed function in the way that I think it's allowed to be used, because it's very possible that if you opened up in an incognito mode to Twitch, you'd be able to embed a video without agreeing to any terms or services. In fact, there's probably many ways to get the embed code without agreeing to any kind of terms and services at all. And if they're not going to have an API key of some sort, an embed key that requires someone to agree to not put it on their site, then that once again falls on Twitch. So as much as I might want to support Twitch and say, well, these Twitch slots and e-girls, who seemingly that's who they were, or at least the majority of them were, they probably did agree to exactly that. And of course, Twitch would have fixed this problem a long time ago if Twitch was run by a professional company. Like, Twitch's whole service is built on the wrong concept of promoting e-girls and Twitch slots, to the point where it's hurting. It has actively, and is still at the moment actively hurting actual female gamers who want to actually just game. It's hurting male gamers. It's hurting all non-binary gamers too. Like, at a certain point, if I go to a adult bookstore, I expect there to be adult books and probably DVDs and movies at this point if I went to an adult bookstore. But if I go to a library, I don't expect adult books in the library. If there are going to be any kind of adult books available in the library, it's probably going to be hidden in a back room that you're going to have to ask somebody for permission to access. It's going to be hidden away from kids. It's going to be really worked out in such a way that the issues of a confused media and confused messaging as far as what the product is. Interesting. Well, I messed up there. Moving on, let's hurry up. Oddworld Soulstorm has been delayed to spring 2021. Having tried to play the Oddworld games, I'm still not sure that you can actually do something with them. And so they've just put out a new teaser of what it looks like. Yeah. I guess it really just comes down to the control. If the platforming in Oddworld Soulstorm is really, really tight, that might very well be the beginning of a reboot of that series, in which I'd be willing to go and listen to the stories then that are told.
This match is mine.
Next, we have a Gematsu article. A game called Returnal launches May 19th, 2021. From what I could tell in the trailer on this game, it has something to do with like this lady being trapped in like her own mind or someone else's mind in a consistent looping pattern. It feels oddly like another game I saw several years ago where you were inside the mind of someone. Maybe it's not inside the mind at all. Maybe you're just on a planet and you're just going in loops. There definitely have been some games out there where you've gone in loops. It's seemingly almost like a bullet hell shooter, where you're going around this alien world. This is a different video than I had seen. She has like a black eye and a blue eye there. Let's see. Yeah, one eye is missing a pigment. Yeah. If anything, it kind of feels like 12 Monkeys, the TV show. Which you'd be very late to the party to try and make a 12 Monkeys video game based on a TV show that's been over for 3 or 4 years.
Let's put the icing on this cake.
Let's see. Could have done more of that. Could do that. This looks like a fairly interesting game. Also, playing as a older lady is interesting. Like, we don't have a lot of old people in particular. Like, and by old I mean past 30 age in games. And more I think as the first and second generation of gamers get old, they're going to want to relate more. There's definitely something about playing Virtue's Last Reward and you have a character named Clover who claims she's 21 and looks like she's about 17. It's definitely a different experience in that game. Also, but in all fairness, I was not coming into Virtue's Last Reward to perv on a 17-year-old girl. If that was my intention, if I was going to play some adult game, I think I would have been a lot more into that. I could have gotten more into that thought. Let's see. Do that. Let's go ahead and do that. And then just go ahead and do that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead and do that. Man, I played wrong there. I could have killed that guy. Next, Gematsu has an article. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection has been announced for Switch, which it's not super surprising that they're going to try and bring back, Capcom is going to try and bring back pretty much all their old games. This is another game, though, that I think will require really good controls and probably a completely different life bar system so you can continue for people to actually be able to play it and like it. I think even at that, there's probably a little bit less of a relevancy there. and there's a decent chance Capcom is just trying to get a quick buck. This might also be an indication, though, of Capcom embracing Nintendo over Sony.
Hope shine on.
So that's another thing to consider.
With a bang and a boom.
I embrace all manner of spellcraft.
There we go. Capcom also announced that they were going to basically re-release a bunch of their old games in a bundle of old NES style games, which their lineup is not really that strong.
This bears further study.
Yeah,
Let's see. Next we have Gamatsu with Evil Dead the game announced for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. The way Ash is drawn here is different than the way he looked when I saw the trailer. It is also worth mentioning he has the chainsaw and the shotgun, which I don't believe in at least the first iteration of the movie as far as it goes. I don't think there's any chainsaw or shotgun added. Maybe the chainsaw was added at the very end. Oh. Let's see. And see if we can maybe full screen this. So we'll come over here and we'll skip through this. So a lot of it's just talking, and a lot of it is not, it doesn't have anything I think to really do with the TV series, but the graphics are nicer than I think even the regular depiction. And it seems like it's a group of 4 people that are going to just run around the general cabin area and fight the monsters. Let's see, that's his face very de-aged and redone. But yeah, the actual game seems to be mostly just running around that way. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like exactly the same technology that already was used in the Friday the 13th game. I wouldn't be surprised if this literally is just the Friday the 13th game getting re-offered and relisted.
Just maybe this magic will help.
So, yeah. Yeah, I don't... It's Saber Interactive and Boss Team Games that are making it. And I think that probably is a different companies than who had made Friday the 13th.
Wait, how did I lose?
But the thing I would say more than anything, having not really bothered to ever sit through any of the Evil Dead movies, and I should, and I fully accept any condemnment, as it were, for not having sat through any of the Evil Dead series movies all the way through. The point of them, as far as I can see, having actually sat through all the TV series and really liking it, is that it is campy horror, grotesque monsters
Bow before dark dragoon.
that the campiness, the dumb jokes, the stupidity to it is the fun. Particularly in the TV series, they have Ash come off as a sexist, racist idiot who is still lovable, but just always says the exact wrong thing and does the wrong thing, and that's what you expect from that character, really. That he has a good heart, but he's old and backwards. And because it's supposed to be, particularly in the TV series, like every monster you ran into and saw was a different looking kind of monster. It wasn't just a repeated zombie type character. The Evil Dead series, you're not really fighting zombies, really. You're fighting all kinds of weird things, unknowable and understandable elder god creations, as it were. They're gonna have to be really careful in an Evil Dead game to take that idea. Every single new character you see should shock you. It almost certainly should be a linear storyline game. This teaser that we're seeing around the cabin probably needs to expand to some other regions fairly quickly. They need to find a good justification for the 4 characters to be there and for it to be a 4-player game, when I think the story probably would be better if it was a single player game with just some NPC characters helping out, or Ash playing alone. And inherently that is the problem with any teaser and trailer that would have come out at the Game Awards or any other time. I suppose one of the things to also take away from is, in sitting through the Game Awards, which took forever, it was really long, I in no way had the feeling that I missed this type of experience. I didn't think to myself for one second, oh yeah, E3 didn't happen, so I really feel like I've missed out on all the game announcements. Being a YouTube video game critic who streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and sees game announcements all the time, I have my fill there. And frankly, I get better information by just following Gamasutra Gamatsu and TechRaptor than watching E3 once a year or watching the Game Awards once a year. Let's see.
Don't even look at my prey.
Ready to witness my true strength?
So I could definitely feel like by this time next year, I very possibly would not bother to sit through the Game Awards. And you can even see in these recaps that they really don't have a ton to say. Just announcements for games that maybe will come out in 2021. We have no idea. 2021 could be twice as bad as 2020 for all we know. And there could be no game listings. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Morkreed, which is some kind of puzzle game where you're pushing a bright light ball, and that lights your way, and the characters are in shadow. Okay, that looks interesting enough. 1999, bunch of languages.
I shall guide thee to eternity.
There was a teaser for a game that looked somewhat funny from the creator of the game A Way Out, where A Way Out and I believe the game from that creator before A Way Out were both games that were totally built around the concept of co-op gameplay. You just could not play the game without co-op gameplay. So this new game has this like, I assume husband and wife turned into puppets, and they have to work together to work out their relationship as it were, and that's a funny concept that I think works around their idea of all their games requiring cooperation. I think at a certain level there is a question that needs to be asked as to why this game developer is so obsessed with that concept that he's made 3 games around it already. But yeah, apparently that is the a better implementation of that, or it looks like a better implementation of that. Of course, if it is once again a game where you have to have 2 players play it at the same time, then it would be the 3rd game from this developer that lots of people like me would just not be able to play. And I could certainly see touching on relationships, romantic relationships. It's not something video games have ever done well, so I wouldn't be surprised if it also comes off very badly. Let's see. There have the previous game, A Way Out, was just like 2 criminals trying to escape prison and then I think going on a crime spree, which is a bit more of a story. Next we have a game on Steam here called Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, which apparently came out December 10th, 2020, and it's mostly negative. It's a VR game for $60, single player with online player versus player. Do people not like the Medal of Honor series? Not immersed at all. The gunplay ruins the game. You have to break your wrist to aim down at the handgun sight. Can't aim with the Thompson. The reload feels bad. After 2 hours download and some gameplay, I definitely have things to say. This game is going to seriously make its core demographic really mad. Let's see. Glitches, aiming is atrocious, movement, characters' expressions, picking up and throwing objects, inconsistencies in object interactions. So apparently this has just been snuck out by EA. I've heard absolutely nothing about this game unless this was released on like PlayStation VR a year ago. It seems like they've snuck out a game that they knew was bad. And I mean, what can you really say? In the long run, EA is EA.
You are free, my darling. Soar! Stop!
We can see the beginning of the end as far as the news today, so we should I think we can wrap up slightly quicker today. And I've dropped a few frames, but it's like 241 frames so far on the stream. That's an insignificant small number of frames. Also, I suppose we should point out that I must have gotten the quality of service right again, because I have not had any problems with images loading lately. Here we have a game called Rise of the Three Kingdoms, which obviously is a Chinese game. Early access, $7.99, third-party EULA in Chinese full audio. Yeah. Chinese game developers have literally ruined the concept of playing any kind of the Chinese great novel stories. Like, there's just so many bad games that try to put their own take on it that I can't imagine. Draw cards equal to the attacker's strongest allied follower in play. Alright, well.
The curtain rises for a new era.
I'm gonna lose anyways, but this. He's just gonna attack and
Victory
win.
is a testament to your strength.
If I could have convinced this guy to draw a bunch of cards or beef up their character a lot, there might have been a way to trick him into a loss that way, but probably not. See, we're just going through everything trying to win. Yeah, there really was just not a good recap here. Gematsu was the best recapper, and that's kind of silly that a Japanese-focused video game website recapped the Western Game Awards better than Gamma Sutra, who seems intent to not say anything. They probably have some bias that I'm not aware of, and Tech Raptor, who seems just to be behind. Let's see. Gematsu has an article here. Fist, as in forged in Shadow Torch, as a PlayStation 5 version and launches in 2021. They had announced this before. I also feel like there has been some other cartoon or something where there is a Diesel Punk rabbit with a giant arm. This is labeled as a Diesel Punk Metroidvania game. I feel like maybe there was a comic book or a cartoon around this. And then you have some fairly nice graphics in this teaser and trailer, but that's not really what the game is. It's more of a platformer. Honestly, this kind of feels like a Sonic game if you were going to get rid of Sonic and still be in that same universe. And make it a Metroidvania. Which, there's an argument to make a Sonic game in a Metroidvania style. Probably would work. Then this was a somewhat surprising announcement as it was announced. Arc 2 has been announced, even though Arc 1 I think is still in early access, and Arc Survival Evolved was its name once. And they've paid for, they've got a lot of funding to hire Vin Diesel and use his likeness as a character in Arc 2. I'm not sure anybody's really going to care because I'm not sure anybody really cares about Arc 1. And on top of that, they also have a they also have a Arc animated series that is going to star some famous people, including Elliot Page, now known as Elliot Page. So that's slightly interesting. I did hear someone kind of complain about Elliot Page's announcement, in that I don't think there's been any. And see, this is an unfair statement to even justify and repeat for sure, but I'll repeat it regardless. There is complaints certainly around celebrities in general, and I think in particular Elliot Page's announcement brought this back to the surface of celebrities not really transitioning, but claiming that they are emotionally transitioning. Certainly from someone who isn't transgender's perspective, I suppose it's understandable to not fully be able to relate to or understand or want to agree to the thought process of someone saying, well, I feel like a woman even though I was born a man, therefore I want to be referred to as a woman, but I'm not going to get any kind of reassignment surgery at all, so I'm still going to have male genitalia. I'm not going to get breast implants. I'm not going to potentially even change my appearance by that much. And it's new days certainly for Elliot Page, but to combat those kind of complaints, we would want to see Elliot Page dressed very much like a male character and butch to help the world transition for a little bit there. It's of course not Elliot Page's job to make the world comfortable. On the other hand, it is also Elliot Page that made a big deal about announcing all of that. And the complaint is that there have almost certainly been celebrities who have claimed that they were transgender just to get attention. And celebrities or non-celebrities certainly have probably made those complaints. That doesn't have much to do with video games other than Elliot Page is going to be in a video game Netflix anime. In a weird way, these Netflix non-animes that aren't really anime, in particular, are going with an older style, and it is either growing the field of people who are fans of animated content, or it's splitting the fan base of anime fans, one or the other. I think it might very well slowly be growing the field of fans of animated content. So I could... That is interesting. Although, in all fairness, Netflix's video game related content has not gone greatly well.
Father, come on. Even if I'm scrap, I can still fight.
Let's see. The actual Arc 2 looks very pretty in the cutscene. Honestly, I thought it was a Turok game because you're fighting this big dinosaur-like character. You're also fighting some other kinds of like humanoid-like creatures. And then once you... It looks like a very... a very prehistoric, like dinosaur planet that you're that the people are living in, and then later on you start to see technology, and it gets revealed that the Vin Diesel character here we can show this part, he just walks up to this scanner and it scans his DNA and says, oh yeah, you actually were on the ship, and he shuts down the technology to save his batteries. Alright, but yeah, here's where the animated series looks though. Like, it's definitely not the Moe style. It's definitely going for kind of a Castlevania style anime that you might have seen something like this. Honestly, I don't even know if you really would call this anime or if you just call this a cartoon at this point. You're seeing a lot of high action and a lot of influences here, and a lot of sharp angles and a lot of violence and a lot of things that you would attribute to anime but aren't exclusive to anime. Stabbing through the neck with a arrow. But honestly, this really is just a cartoon at this point. And it probably... there's a decent chance it won't be a good cartoon, in the same way that I don't think that there's a great chance that the Arc 2 will be a good game. So they have like David Tennant as Doctor Who, one of the Doctor Who's, Elliot Page, Malcolm McDowell, Russell Crowe, and Vin Diesel. I feel like also Vin Diesel is depicted with all of these kind of blue paint all over him. All the characters have it on there. And it kind of makes him feel like he was a second pick to somebody like The Rock. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody told me actually this was offered to The Rock first, and then it was rejected by The Rock and he wasn't interested. Which I wouldn't be surprised by that, because I bet as The Rock's own daughter is getting older, he probably doesn't want to go into more mature video games or video games in general, and wants to focus more on kind of a Disney earlier kid. elements. You could easily see that this may have been an offer. We'll get your daughter in here and we'll face scan her in the game. We'll face scan you in it, and The Rock, which I don't think Vin Diesel has any kids as far as I know. Like, I don't even know if he's married, but it'd be easy to keep that secret, wouldn't it? Next, we have a Gematsu article. A third-person atmospheric adventure bicycle road trip game called Season has been announced for PlayStation 5 and PC. Boy, is that a long description. There was two games that were kind of road trip games. This one, you're apparently going on road trips and recording bugs and drawing pictures and just having a bit of an experience. This is set in some kind of like post-apocalypse world where the world and society's collapsed and a new, more peaceful, laid-back kind of Zen Buddhist world now exists instead, and they've re-embraced nature, which that does seem like a more unique story than what I would typically expect.
Is that a human?
Let's see. How can we do this? We gotta evolve this.
I'm done sticking my
And
head
then
in. I
hit
told you
this.
to leave. I failed to understand
And then
you.
this has Bane.
Lonely.
And then this has +1/+1. And that probably loses the game for me.
Need a loan?
On the leaves of the Isha tree, close the turn.
Yeah, I could have drawn a card. That's about all I could do. And that's very different from the other road trip game where you apparently are selecting who you're gonna hitchhike with, and if you select the wrong people, it'll put you in different scenarios, or if you select the right people, it'll put you in different scenarios, which is an interesting story, but it also is a story kind of telling a false narrative of how many people these days really are hitchhiking across America. I think even in the past, when hitchhiking was much more prevalent, there was probably less of it than have been told in stories. Your Tech Raptor has the Game Awards pre-shows, news, and announcements.
Time to get started.
A game called Loop Hero was announced. This was the game they gave, that Devolver Digital gave themselves Game of the Year to. And yeah, this looks like not much, really. It's very pixely. Kind of looks like nothing. A game called Teacher, a brand new island adventure game. We're seeing a lot of getting back to nature, playing as kids, simpler time type stories. This looks a lot like Alba, but it is a totally different game. This is more of a Hawaiian character. A Sea of Solitude director's cut has been announced. Let's see. They're saying it's the definitive version of the game with brand new content and all of it is now available for Nintendo. See, the problem with Sea of Solitude is it looked like a slightly interesting story, but then got reviewed pretty poorly as far as the actual gameplay, and I don't think people even really like the story as a metaphor of like a depressed girl, I think is what it was. So unless this director's cut fixes a lot of those problems and comes to PC and is way more well received, it kind of feels like it's very possibly going to be a waste of effort for there to ever been a director's cut. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if most games have director's cuts in development before the game is even released, and they just plan on selling something like that. Not every game needs a director's cut in the same way that not every movie needs a director's cut. As funny as it might be to see a Porky's director's cut, I bet you're not going to get anything that different. Usually when you see a director's cut in a movie, that means that the production company meddled and the director wants a different cut, and or the director is crazy and he wants different cuts for different reasons. And that's when you start seeing, like, George Lucas multiple cuts from the same director, or even Blade Runner with 5 different cuts, when there's really, I think, only 1, maybe 2 versions that you actually should watch. And at a certain level, patching and fixing bugs is not really making a different cut in most people's mind. And if they're calling it a director's cut now, that means they're leaving open the door for a definitive edition later. And then a remaster or a HD upres later, and then a remaster, and then a remake. You can just try and sell your game over and over again. And oddly, there's never been like a director's cut or definitive edition of Myst, but there's been plenty of reports and remasters of it. But they don't change the story much. Maybe they add a little bit, but that's it. Because people liked the story of Myst, and they knew it would be sacrificing a sacred cow, frankly, to try and change the story in Myst. And honestly, I think they probably should. They should try and reboot the whole series. But I think they're taking the smarter move and just moving on. Alright, so now we're just trying to win. So we'll take victories until we lose. A game here called The Shady Part of Me is coming out for Switch, which is one of these games where your shadow, I think, is going to play a role. Yep. On one hand, because it's a Switch game, it looks low polygonal. On the other hand, it looks kind of artsy and interesting. I definitely have seen 2 or 3 games where they've tried to have shadow sections, and you're doing this kind of co-op with yourself. But it hasn't worked greatly. Like Contrast was another game like that, and I liked the idea, and I didn't like the implementation that much. It was too short of a game in part 2. So play that. Okay, as far as the winners, best family game went, I guess, to this. Let's see. See, Animal Crossing's New Horizons ended up winning Best Family Game, and yet they show a picture here of a different game. Best Community Support goes to Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Okay, that explains that picture. Best Debut Game went to Phasmophobia, or Phasmophobia, whatever, however you pronounce that. The Player's Choice Award went to Ghost of Tsushima. That was the award that the creator of Last of Us 2 said, "You're a hater if you don't vote for my game," and people took offense to that and said, "We'll show you," and then they actively chose to brigade to not vote for that game. Or at least that's the simplified version of the story. You'd have to actually look at the actual tweet to determine how much you want to take it that way, or whether it was supposed to be a joke or not. Honestly, it does kind of boil down to the idea of if you have a game under a Voters' Choice Award, you should probably just say, vote for my game, or vote for the awards in general, because if you try to influence anyone's decision, you're going to have a percentage of people that reject that. Esports awards, best esports game was League of Legends, best esports coach was Sonic, best esports event was League of Legends World Championship 2020, best host was SJOZ, best esports team was G2 Esports, and best esports athlete was Showmaker. A game called Century Age of Ashes is a multiplayer, almost Panzer Dragoon game where you're flying on dragons. And apparently that's as much as Tech Raptor got as far as the pre-show. We'll see if they got any more later. A game called Hood Outlaws and Legends launches May 10th, 2021. I believe this was another Game Awards thing. Yeah, I still don't get why this symbol forms a V and then you don't want to call it the Video Game Awards. I feel like that is just a really bad choice. This is from, I believe, Focus Home Interactive. And it looks interesting, but it also looks like it's just going to be a multiplayer game. So I'm not sure you're going to have a great experience here. What they're showing a lot of is animations that they put effort into. So, almost like a multiplayer Assassin's Creed games back when they made those multiplayer modes for Assassin's Creed. But yeah, I'm not sure there's enough experience there, or enough of a game there that would make me want to play it in a single player mode, if there is even a single player mode. Also, there may just not be any story there at all. Let's see. Gamatsu has this article. Nier Replicant version whatever. Bunch of numbers. The Game Awards 2020 gameplay trailer. I missed this trailer at some point. I must have walked out of the room. Which definitely also goes to point out how long this whole proceedings was. And it seems like a lot of these videos are straight up just getting flagged as adult content only, and I think they went a little extreme on that. And this is Nier Replicant, not the walking cell phone game we've seen before. This is the sequel, I guess, to Nier Automata, and it definitely looks like it could be a sequel to Nier Automata. Of course, there may be a more storyline-wise sequel to the Automata series, too. And that was a Square Enix game, and that was specifically labeled as adult. Let's see. Age restricted, requested by uploader, is what it says. So Square Enix age restricted it, not YouTube, at least that's the case. But oddly, the English one is age restricted, but the Japanese video, not age restricted. So, and I don't know why it was age restricted in the first place, because there's like not even any footage here that looks crazy. I think this is a male character. He's got kind of a skirt type thing, but we're not seeing a lot of his butt or any of his front. So what part of this trailer other than the violence, would have needed to be age restricted. I'm not listening to the audio. I suppose he could be making horrific grunting sounds or something like that, but even that doesn't really make it feel like there should be an age restriction. That definitely goes to show how there is a difference in how Square Enix looks at the Western world versus the Japanese world as to what they want to age restrict, what they think the Western world thinks is appropriate and not appropriate for kids.
I'm powerless. For now.
No one else has to know.
Gamatsu has that same article, Sea of Solitude Director's Cut announced for Switch.
Punishment awaits.
This is apparently Quantic Dream is the publisher. So Quantic Dream might be republishing this, specifically making a director's cut because they're trying to make more money off of it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Quantic Dream's idea. So check that. Let's do that. Let's go and play here
No one else has to
and
know.
here. They also have this for PC and Stadia. The open world game Tchia has been announced, which this is a different animation style than what we saw the game was actually in. All these are just little reveal trailer teasers.
I purge the earth by filling sinners with holes.
Yeah, not a lot to say, certainly. Not a lot to say around a lot of these games. We can do this, we can do this. We can do this.
I can devour your dreams.
We can do this. I can evolve.
You won't wake up.
Just in the turn. The game Shady Part of Me is already on Steam, so you could buy it now, $13.49. Bunch of languages. I'll put it on the fall list. It certainly feels weird that some games get announced at the Game Awards, which at this point it's fairly obvious that there were more teasers and trailers and announcements at the Game Awards than there are actual awarding of game awards, to the point where all the esports stuff was kind of rushed through. There was definitely a section there. There was also a section I think that's worth mentioning where they had a special video where they highlighted someone who worked as a psychologist, and she talked about how psychologically video games were good and they help people like alleviate stress and cope with their lives and things like that. And it was like yeah, peace, love, kumbaya stuff. And then without taking a single break, not even like fading to black for half a second or anything like that, they just snap cut to a trailer of a new game that they were announcing that was all about blood and gore and horrific things and things that would disturb anyone who was slightly unstable mentally. And I'm like, man, did they not see these two trailers first? In fact, there was also a Korean game that was shown for like 4 minutes, it felt like, with no audio other than music. So they either screwed up that trailer completely, or this Korean RPG maker literally had not decided whether they were going to have English audio and didn't want to play it with, I guess, Asian audio, or didn't have any audio at all, except for background sound effects and music. It wasn't even sound effects, it was just music.
Design a brighter future for everyone.
So there were several instances where this Game Awards felt worse than what I vaguely recall the Game Awards were last year.
For the skies in the name of justice.
And so kind of a big disappointment there. There's at least two reasons to be not interested in the Game Awards next year. One, if it's just going to turn into an E3 thing where you get a bunch of announcements for games that will be forever in development hell, like Elden Ring. They did jokingly mention Elden Ring, but because people were memeing it, but that they didn't actually announce anything. But yeah, I'm not happy with the way the Game Awards happened. I'm, in retrospect, the more I've been talking about it here, the more I realize I feel like I wasted my time watching it. And I could have been doing another episode of Virtue's Last Reward. I did notice here just now that there's a Game Awards sale happening between December 9th and 14th. Does that mean there is no Christmas sale, no winter sale on Steam? I think it probably does, which is fine. Like that saves me money, as it were. They're showing off a decent number of games. I think pretty much all of these was shown. This game, Road 96, was the procedurally generated hitchhiking game I was talking about. This game, Humankind, is a real-time strategy game that I thought was going to be a Time Splitters announcement, but it isn't, and it's not really a game. We Are OFK is some kind of LBGT band. I'm in a band visual novel type story, I guess. Persona 5 Strikers, I guess, was re-mentioned. New Replicant is coming to PC, so it's not the cell phone game. Open Roads is a game from the voice actors of the Life is Strange characters, but I think they're going to have a bit more of a standard story, and it's going to be more of a, they're calling it interactive fiction. I'd say basically a visual novel with flat animated characters compared to the craziness of the time rewinding mechanic of Life is Strange that never really went anywhere. There's definitely some games that are on sale here that don't directly have anything to do with what was announced. I don't think.
Unbelievable.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't feel like Jedi Fallen Order, for instance, was had anything announced there. I don't think One Punch Man had anything announced there. So there are just some people that wanted to be in a sale during Christmas, and this might be the new way Valve does things, as they may have thematic games that go on sale. Interesting, they're also not telling you the discount of games if you've already owned them, I guess. Or there is no discount, and yet these are like the 2018 winners. These are 2017 winners. So they haven't, I think, actually announced the winners for the 2020. They have the nominees. Half-Life Alyx didn't really get enough awards for what it probably deserved. Some of these have limited time demos. Yeah, That Dragon Cancer is trying to sell. This was one of these game creators that literally said they didn't want people to cover their game on YouTube. So yeah, I can easily blacklist you and oblige that if that's what you want. I'd much rather you tell me straight now instead of trying to DMCA me later.
Prepare to face judgment.
Let's go ahead and attack here. Attack that. Attack that. Still gonna lose.
I envy you.
Yeah, it's not a large list of games that are on sale. If I go to the main storefront, we can see just like advertisements for Cyberpunk and see some bundles. Not really seeing a lot of things on sale. They're not even really promoting the Video Game Awards sales right now. I could certainly come over to like my wish list. Let's see. Well, there was this thing to certainly talk about. This Steam Lab was version 10 new browse views. And so you have now way more categories than what you had before as far as what you want to search. Of course, zoomed in, a lot of these are taking up the full screen, but that's fine. And then be kind of nice to know what the difference between the new and noteworthy was. That might just be a whole nother thing. And it seems like the point shop itself is just kind of nothing. But now that I've activated that new Steam Lab thing, I don't think I can deactivate it. I guess you could leave the experiment to see it if you wanted, but I'll stick with it. Let's see, what I really wanted to see was my wish list, which is not under your store, it's under store, which is confusing to say the least. Okay, and if I go to my wish list and then I go to discount, right.
I bring unto you serenity.
Is fighting and despair all you know?
Okay. So sorting by discount, I have games that are not marked off, and then we have something here that's like 90% off, and we have something here that's 90% off, and then we get to some 85% off. Dragon Ball Fighter Z at $9.59 makes sense, but you are probably going to have to pay some extra in that if you want all of the characters, which you probably do. Saints Row the Third at $8.99 makes sense, but then you probably need to pay more for extra there. Worms 1 for $1.59 is a good choice. Saints Row the Fourth, again, probably some DLC deluxe edition you'd want on that. Injustice 2 at $11.99 is 80% off, and fairly quickly, as far as my list, you start to see discounts that aren't that interesting. This really does not feel like a store-wide sale for the Video Game Awards. And so, unless there was we can search by price to see if maybe there's just some things that are really cheap. That is, if this is going to work. I can't get it to work for some reason. This. This just worked. Something about my cosmetic options is stopping me from doing all of that. Interesting. Well, whatever. That's not a big enough problem to try and seek down a solution. If we search just by price, there's a decent number of games that say they're free or have free demos, so those aren't accurate descriptions. Then when we start to see actual numbers next to everything instead of just play now things, yeah, there's just a lot of free games or games I've already purchased on the wish list. This is a larger list than I thought it would have been. Are they listing like every game? I probably need to go through this whole list and like remove some things in particular. Because some of this stuff either I don't really have a reason to play or have on the wish list, or I've already played, although it's not too many games I've already played. Not all of these are student projects or anything like that, and a lot of them are definitely not even reviewed. And see, when you get back to that, you're back to the 90% off for the game Leaves and 80% off there, and some DLC stuff that maybe I'd get, maybe I wouldn't. Yeah. Some of these games, like the Act of Murder games, may be 70% off, so not discounted that much, but that's as much as they can be discounted to get them down to $1.50, which is probably a minimum they're willing to pay there. Also, though, Act of Murder has got like 2 good games, 1 mixed game, and 2 negative games. These Sudoku games wouldn't be terrible to get. So I could see myself spending maybe $10, $20, maybe even $40 on the sale, or I could easily just skip it because there's just nothing there. And I think that's the case for most people, that it will be. It's not really a sale worth looking at. Like this Dragon Ball Fighter Z edition here would be $15.19. Ultimate edition would be $17.59. I feel like Ultimate edition is the minimum you would want to get there. And you run a risk, certainly. Not a huge risk, but you run a risk that the single player content here might not be good enough if you're not going to play online as a Dragon Ball Z fighter game. I think Dragon Ball Z has a very high chance of still being popular, and it also has a high chance of not having a lot of new characters added to the series over the next 4 years. So I suspect you could easily live with Dragon Ball Z Fighter Z. There probably will be a new Dragon Ball fighting game that comes out every year, but that doesn't inherently mean it's going to be better than this, because there has been a long run of bad Dragon Ball fighting games. Saints Row the Third, on the other hand, yeah, the full package. Yeah, that's a deal, certainly. Is just add that to the cart. $2.99 for the Saints Row the Third full package. So yeah, I'll add that to the cart, and I'll think about some other things and maybe spend about $10.
I could never set foot in the sun.
Well, one thing I'll definitely have to have is the cosmetic filters on these pages turned on, because when looking at any game, you can see how clicking on the catalogs just covers up the entirety of a game. But that's no problem. It's simple reload, and then my cosmetic filters come back, and there goes the store crossbar. Here we have a game called Red Rage, which looks like an asset flip horror game. Doesn't look particularly interesting. $2.99 English only. These zombies might have caught my eye if they had some more polish to them. But the gameplay around that is basically nothing.
Stop! Begin.
Give me strength. I'll play my part.
Here we have the Game of Life 2 on Steam, which I believe the Game of Life 1 on Steam was hugely overpriced and hugely hated, and kind of not the Game of Life. I know one of the Game of Life games was like this. This is selling for $8.99. I swear I saw this listed for like $35 at some point. If you buy a bundle here, you can get it with Battleship and Game of Life 2 and Clue and Cluedo. But also I know that Clue and Cluedo, basically you need a season pass, and this game seems like it needs a season pass too. See, they are saying buy the season pass. Let's see. It's a mobile. It's like a 20-minute game that they've modified for mobile, and now they're putting out on Steam. And let's look at the Game of Life 1. Oh, I actually own it. How did I end up owning this game? This must be the good one, because this is rated very positively. Interesting. Well, that puts you in a bit of a quagmire, certainly. And I guess the solution is easy. Just put it on the fall list and don't buy it day one that it comes out. We'll see what people have to say about the Game of Life 2 in 6 months. I guess if you don't want to be patient and wait, you can take it under your own accords to buy the game. There is always this danger, certainly with these board games, though, that they start at a minimum of $8.99 or thereabout. You're not getting a discount, even though you're not getting any cardboard or plastic pieces or anything like that physical. You're still paying a premium for a digital product. And I still need like 2 victories, theoretically, so let's see if we can possibly pull that off. I don't think so. I think we'll be done with the stream before I get 2 victories. Here we have a game on Steam called Darklight Origin, which looks like it's an attempt at a Demon Souls game, but it does not look very visually polished. Demon Souls-like game. $19.99 English only. Next, we have a game on Steam called Simply Parkour, which, by the name alone, you know is just an asset flip parkour game.
Prove myself. Mother, father, come on.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Plummet, which seems to be a very zoomed out player versus player top-down game. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a Chinese game. $11.04 English only. Nope, this is, by all looks, it is just a Western game. I've seen some cell phone games like this where it's all about trying to knock the player off, or knock characters off the edges. Although I don't think I've ever seen it done with actual player versus NPCs. But yeah, Plummet is just not visually polished enough. TechRaptor has an article here. Bad Robot Game Studio is now being led by a Valve former developers. I thought Bad Robot had already made some games or been involved in the making of games. So J.J. Abrams' creations are now going to be turned into video games. The former Valve employees is the question. I'd like to know the names of those people. Like, Bad Robot has been kind of stuck and involved with the reboots of the Star Trek and Star Wars reboots, and in a weird way they've kind of not succeeded, for lack of a better thing. I'm willing to totally believe that meddling from Paramount on Star Trek hurt the Star Trek movie reboots, and the fact that Paramount just could not get the right writers to make a Star Trek TV series that actually feels good. In fact, I went back and watched some of the extremely rushed, extremely disconnected final episodes of the final season of Star Trek Enterprise, and looked at like all the bad low effort props that were in Enterprise, and how that budget was just really low. And the general feel in Enterprise now, compared to what I've heard and seen as far as Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard, makes Enterprise feel so much more like a actual Star Trek series, where it was the odd one out. And in a fair way, I think Deep Space Nine still is a odd one out. But in retrospect, Discovery and Picard, I think, is making me enjoy Voyager and Enterprise a lot better. So is this just a constant cycle with the Star Trek series, that you only learn to appreciate a series once somebody has made something worse? That's not a good way to run your shows, for sure. Actually, I was surprised to find out that it was actually Lucille Ball and the Desilu production company that first greenlit the original series of Star Trek, and before they eventually sold it to Paramount, or Paramount took over Desilu. That's an odd connection for sure that doesn't seem to get mentioned. And by all rights, she may have had no idea what was going on, or not cared at all. So yeah, Paramount at the moment doesn't really want Bad Robot involved with any of the Star Trek. They've really failed to make any Star Trek movies for any of the actors or characters. Like, there was never a Deep Space Nine movie, there was never a Voyager movie, there was never any kind of crossover movies between any of those characters. Instead, they did the reboot series. And in all fairness, I would say the reboot series of Star Trek, the first couple of movies were alright, and the third movie, I think, was just not only slightly less well received. So I don't think they're particularly bad movies. They're just action movies and not really Star Trek. And I just don't think J.J. Abrams, in a lot of ways, J.J. Abrams is the Stephen Moffat of the Western of the U.S., in the sense that I think J.J. Abrams probably was a huge nerd and fan of Star Wars and Star Trek, and that's why he got put in charge, and he shouldn't have been put in charge because of that reason. Stephen Moffat was a huge fan of Doctor Who, and that's why he got put in charge, and that wasn't probably a good enough reason to have him be in charge of Doctor Who.
Do come again.
Um, so it'll be interesting to see what they are going to work. J.J. Abrams also made Alias and Lost, so there could be that.
Whoa, you're strong.
Right. So the people that actually are from Valve will be Anna Sweet. Heard of her as the CEO. I don't think she's really done anything though. I think I heard about her moving from some other job to her, I assume, previous job. She seems to just jump around. Of course, if she's a CEO higher management person, then it's not surprising you wouldn't have heard of what she's actually accomplishing. She served as a senior product and business development manager at Valve, and head of developing strategy at Oculus. So maybe that would change how Valve works, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. Combined with her work as the head of content at Facebook Social VR and founder of VR consultancy firm Robot Teddy, Anna Sweet is joined by, is that Michael Booth? I think that's how you spell Michael, not Michelle. I'm going to say Michael Booth was the founder and CEO of Turtle Rock Studios, so he's basically taking a demotion, which was later acquired by Valve, placing him in a position of project lead for Left 4 Dead. He subsequently worked as game director at Blizzard Entertainment and product manager at Facebook Social VR, so we know where these two met. Yep. So, yeah. Two people who happen to work at Valve, which is a company that seems to basically employ everybody, now work at a Bad Robots game studio. We can probably expect to see some game announcement 4 to 8 years from now, if it even gets that far, unless they just want to get an announcement out of the way and then put it in development hell for 4 to 8 years after that, which they may very well do. TechRaptor has an article here. Cyberpunk 2077 apparently is already making CD Projekt Red a profit. Yeah, I imagine a lot of people stupidly pre-ordered Cyberpunk 2077, and hopefully this is the time that finally breaks a lot of people from ever pre-ordering again. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be fairly disappointed with Cyberpunk 2077 once they actually play it and have seen all there is to see. And one can only hope that the next Witcher game is done a lot better. Next we have a game on Steam called Free Spirit VR, which is apparently just a VR game where you sit in front of a campfire and look over a cliff. It's $11.99, English, full audio.
May the forest be at peace.
A game like that's definitely not going to happen. The CEO, Susan Wojcicki of YouTube, retweeted this article where Jacksepticeye is going to host an annual Thankmas charity stream with Tiltify benefiting Red Nose Day. Jacksepticeye, I haven't seen him recently, but he has definitely apparently gotten like a new publicist or something. He's changed his look. He's trying to go much more mainstream, much more well received. He definitely seems to have gotten a haircut, as it were, and changed his appearance. He no longer feels like just a kid. He kind of feels like he's moving into more of a entrepreneurial adult tier of celebrity. And I suppose if he manages to avoid any controversies, he might be one of the few people that actually succeeds at making that transition.
The whole world.
Hmm.
Ow! Ow!
See, TechRaptor has an article here. The Epic Games Store holiday sale is here soon, giving away 15 games. 15 days of free games, so I guess every day you would want to log in to the Epic Games Store to get those games. Didn't actually even bother to read what games they were. Oops. Suffice it to say, I am not enthused about getting free games on the Epic Games Store. It's a nice little backup to have a secondary account in case something happens to my Steam account, but that's all it probably will ever be to me. Suppose it is also worth mentioning that the security for Genshin Impact is really terrible, and so is the customer support. So somebody stole a player's account, a player who very well may have been a whale, and then they spent some money on that account, and because this person who stole the account spent money on that account, Genshin Impact's the company that runs Genshin Impact said, we're not giving you back your own account. And that's a ridiculous statement to say. There's no good justification for doing something like that, other than just a incredibly short-sighted, blatant greed. Because you literally are making a confession to a crime in that statement, and they have not realized that. They have accepted a fraudulent transfer of money. They have become a partner to a fraudulent crime, and they are actively saying that they will act to protect of the perpetrator of that fraudulent crime. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing business with Genshin Impact, and inherently that's just more of the evidence that doing business with Chinese companies is difficult to suggest, because they're always doing something shady, or they very prevalently are doing something shady. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Trackmaster, which seems to be like a Mario Party game, no, Mario Kart type Trackmania game, where you can create really crazy tracks, and seemingly you can also drop like pieces of track off the back of your car and crash other people, but it doesn't really feel like it's much of a game otherwise. It really feels more like it's just an asset flip instead of a real game. It's $26.99 English only. Yeah. It's just no consistent visual theming here. You know, and I guess that goes to say there's not a good argument to have someone to have the levels in a Mario Kart like game be varied and mix and match in its visual aesthetic. It should be the same stuff every time. The snow level should look like a snow level. The jungle level should look like a jungle level. Almost done. TechRaptor has an article here. Killing Floor 2 2021 plan teases space map and weapons. I'm a little surprised that they're still working on Killing Floor 2, but I think the Killing Floor series in particular is still always being worked on, so they can always have a justification for selling it. Gametsu has this game Mork Read now available. This is that game where two players are rolling a glowing orb. We've already seen. Let's hit that. And then that. And then that. And then let's go and hit that.
I wasn't supposed to lose.
And then we'll have to play that.
Time to dance.
And hit that. Speaking of Genshin Impact, TechRaptor has an article. Genshin Impact 1.2 update brings a new area and more. Although, if I just literally said I don't think you should give your business to Genshin Impact, I don't know why I'm covering Genshin Impact. And frankly, this probably should be the last time I ever mention it, because like they are going to just constantly add new content and updates, and regardless if it's popular or not, I think it's should probably just hit the blacklist of games I don't actively and intentionally talk about, which I don't know if there is actually such a blacklist that exists. I probably should have something like that, but I haven't
Good to see you, my dear
thought it
Paris.
through. Okay. 3, 6, 9, win.
Your strength is formidable.
Gamatsu has an article here for the procedurally generated road trip game Road 96 announced for PC.
I did it. I won.
Here we can see this eyebrow pierced freckle faced girl. And see this HP Omen was presenting a lot of things. It's from the creators of Valiant Hearts and Memories Retold. You can see. I feel like there's probably more of a story here than it really means. So you're basically trying to escape the country. It's this fictionalized country. I feel like there's probably only a few branches there, and that's it. And I bet there is not a real reason why you would want to play the Road 96 more than once or twice. Oh man, I haven't been playing ranked matches, have I? Darn it. Well, that sucks. The Swedish Chef was at the Game Awards just to be a joke, to announce that he's a free DLC character in Overcooked All You Can Eat, which makes sense. In a funny way, this kind of makes sense too, because the Muppets desperately need to maintain relevancy and move into modern media in the form of video games and probably animation and probably streaming services. The Muppets, as it were, Disney's The Muppets, it is Disney's Muppets, isn't it? Let's hit this point so we can see. Yeah, it says Disney The Muppets. So at some point, Disney bought the Muppets, and they need to figure out how to use that. Much better. Apparently there's a pending trademark for Ninja Gaiden, potentially coming out. Ninja's side story. So, yeah, a new Ninja Gaiden game might be in the works. TechRaptor has an article. Windjammers 2 release date has been delayed to 2021. Which, okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot of Giant Bomb people like obsessively like Windjammers, but I don't know if there's a real fandom outside of the less than 100 mainstream video game journalists that exist that play Windjammers. This is really an example of what unfortunately happens with the cronyism of video game journalists, is journalists is that they will have behind closed door tournaments with their friends who are mostly other journalists playing games that other people haven't seen or don't care about. They almost certainly are not just sitting on the PAX room floor playing with anybody or going to E3 and playing games with random people. They're too elitist for that, and it's not particularly fair to call them that elitist, but they kind of are. Oh, yeah, I take that back. They are elitist. They hide it well, but they're elitist. Next we have a Gematsu article. Daemon X Machina update for Switch and PC apparently adds cross save functionality, so now you can transfer data between Switch and PC, which, okay, that's nice. I did get that email for Gearbox where they wanted you to update your information, and they would give you a free skin, and there was this notice of financial incentive here for California residents only, basically saying, yes, we are trying to harvest your information and use it. They're not really saying who they're selling your information to, but they definitely wanted more information, and I don't know the full reason, but clearly they wanted to get everybody's emails and socials and things like that. All right, and then that brings me to the Humble Bundle store. Let's see if there's any. There's a game dev map and level creator software bundle, which that's probably not useful for anybody who really wants to make games. And that's it. Nothing else new. So like this bundle gives you what looks like just a collection of low effort pre-made levels that one assumes you then have to figure out how to put it into a program, if it all works in RPG Maker or if it works in something else. A lot of these are just tile set packs and things like that like I could easily see somebody accidentally buying this and realizing that none of this is worth anything, particularly since you're not even certain. You'd have to do the research. If you buy this stuff, do you own it literally in the software sense so that you can then put it in your game and you have a license to use it, or do you completely own it? You probably have a license to use it, not fully own it. That would be fairly insane to spend $20 and own it outright. But if you don't have a license and then you go and make a game based on a tile set and they come back and sue you, you're going to be out of luck. Alright, well then that brings me back to my Twitter feed, and let's see if there's any news. It's been a slightly longer stream. There's a Dolby Atmos for headphones app for PC and Xbox that's free until December 13th. I may look at that, although I really don't want to change how things sound by an external program. I want to be able to review games the way they sound normally. My headphones are decent headphones, so games probably do sound a little bit better. But then I also turn down the audio a lot too. So I've never really had a full immersive, this feels like I'm in a theater experience with my headphones on my PC. But I've had a couple of ones. Twitch support will be rolling out reminders for schedules over the next week. So if you're a Twitch streamer, you should set up a schedule, and that if you're a Twitch viewer, you're probably going to get bombarded with notifications if they're not careful. Let's see. Where? I'm still just scrolling down my Twitter feed and seeing there's some new games came out over the last few hours, but we can talk about those on Monday. That'll be fine. A Phasmophobia prison update, new level apparently is coming out or is out. Let's see, The Wolf Among Us 2 will not be at the Game Awards 2020, which is to say it didn't show up. They did tease that, didn't they? But also Telltale was out of business, so TechRaptor mentioning that is kind of just reminding people of the false promises, the unfulfilled promises of this. Let's see. Let's keep on scrolling down. Oh, interesting. Steam adults only section debuts with Steam Labs experiment. I guess that was a category that I didn't see. I agree. I think that's the way to go, certainly. Like, there should be an adults only section on Steam. It should be adult sex games. Like, nobody's gonna go to the adults only section and think that that's just where all the violent first person shooters are. Apparently the Callisto Protocol, which was a game that was announced and we didn't even mention it, is set in the PUBG universe. But yeah. Also, certainly seeing that they made an adults only section as even a category does certainly imply that they are not abandoning adult games. Let's see, so let's just talk about the articles and then we'll wrap up. So here's TechRaptor. The Wolf Among Us 2 will not be at the Game Awards 2020. This almost seems like just one of their joke articles that TechRaptor sometimes did, and I think they finally stopped. This is like a late article too. This got published late because this just came out and like the Game Awards happened yesterday. So I don't even know what that person was just late to the party. And see, here we have another article from TechRaptor. Steam Adults Only section debuts with Steam Labs experiment. And yeah, you can see that the little plus symbol as a Steam Lab is being shown here. Let's see. So, yeah. It'll still be, just because they made a category doesn't mean that they're fully embracing adult games. If anything, even though I did see 4 or 5 adult games this Friday, for the past 2 weeks to 3 weeks, I've not seen anything, and those numbers seem low. But that might have a lot to do with just the pandemic in general, or Christmas time. Finally, TechRaptor has an article. The Callisto Protocol is set in PUBG universe. This game was a trailer where this guy is like in some kind of mining facility or prison. I can't tell which. And he's woken up and then there's just like an alien that attacks him. See, he has like this green thing behind him. This is from the some of the creators of Dead Space, I believe. And so they are effectively just trying to do Dead Space all over again without having to do Dead Space. Also, I don't think they actually own the rights to Dead Space. I think the person left. So here you have like a glitchy robot there, and a lot of darkness, and you have this humanoid monster character, and I'm not certain if we're going to have the same limb mechanics in the Callisto Protocol like we did in Dead Space. So this guy gets eaten, and then you see this guy, and he doesn't seem to have a energy bar behind him. And they're on one of the moons of Jupiter, I think, is Callisto. So, yeah. I don't know how that is in the PUBG universe, really. And I don't know why it would be in the PUBG universe, but that is an interesting statement, to say the least. It's probably something somebody said very flippantly, or is doing just for silly reasons. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.